All right, Steeler fans, welcome. Second half Friday podcast. You know what the deal is. It's time for the All Betz Are Off segment. Joining me, Jeremy Jerome Betz. What's up, Jeremy?
Man, one of the rare times in the podcasting world where the news drops before the show. In this
Yes,
case, I'm sure some people are not feeling the same way, but for us, it worked out well, Jeff. I'm doing
it
good.
did. I've actually been really lucky. Like even earlier this week, like when Gabe Davis was announced to be visiting, when Donald Parham tore his Achilles, like I actually waited and I was like, man, I'm actually getting lucky this week. So this is my
Yeah.
lucky week. Maybe I need to play the lottery. I don't know. But still, yeah, Jeremy, you should be excited. You've been a guy the whole time that says, I want Aaron Rodgers. I think he's the best option for the Steelers. Go ahead and
Yeah.
take your victory lap.
I'll do it humbly, as the guy who knew everything beforehand, and just it's one of those things where all joking aside here, I just think it's the perfect fit. I really do for what the Steelers are trying to do this season, for what Aaron Rodgers brings to the table, the fact that you don't have to commit to him anything beyond 2025, the ability to tell your star players on defense, guys, we're not tanking this year. We know you've got a rare few seasons of your career left. We know you want to establish legacies and win playoff games. You don't have to tell those guys that you're tanking because you're bringing in Aaron Rodgers. You've got the infrastructure in place. You've got the faces of the franchise already in place to where Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to come in and be your savior and become the face that you never had of your franchise and lead you to the promised land or whatever. Those aren't the expectations. If somebody's coming into the season as a fan with the expectations that Aaron Rodgers coming in makes them a Super Bowl contender, I think that that's taking it too far. But to say that the team would be better off with Mason Rudolph and Will Howard handling the majority of the snaps for the team, I just think that was not the right take. And Aaron Rodgers has enough left in the tank to make you a formidable team every week. And with what Mike Tomlin does to raise the floor of this team, and the offensive playmakers that are in place, and maybe more that could be on the way, I think that the Steelers can look at themselves as an upper echelon team, maybe a tier 2 team in the AFC, as it stands right now with Aaron Rodgers on the team.
Yeah, no, I understand everything you're saying. The one thing that's tough for me is and I said this in the first half of the podcast, it's just another Band-Aid. Like they've been trying this all the time, like basically every year since Ben Roethlisberger's retirement. We'll get Mitch Trubisky, slap a Band-Aid on it. We'll draft Kenny Pickett. Didn't think it was a Band-Aid, turned out to
Right.
be a Band-Aid. Now you went into the Russell Wilson, Justin Fields experiment last year. Band-Aid, Band-Aid, and now here comes another one. I'm fine with the Band-Aids, but my gosh, I can't help but not think a lot about 2026 and
Yeah.
saying, can they finally get their long-term fix? Because we know it's not Aaron Rodgers. The guy's going to be
Yeah.
42 years old. That's how old I am. I couldn't
Right.
imagine trying to play 18 weeks in the NFL. It gets just insane. But still, I will say this. It did inject a little bit of life into this offseason so far. And there's a lot of people that are pissed. There's a lot of people that hate him. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people that say, like, I had someone on Twitter say, I might be a Chiefs fan. I'm like, a Chiefs fan? What? Like, what? They go, what? Chiefs of all the teams, but still, hey, that's neither here nor there. But
Yeah.
I would never I would never stop following the Steelers based on a player.
Right.
Other people are entitled to their opinion, but hey, the OTAs have been really boring these last 2 weeks. So guess what? Before mandatory minicamp next week, we injected a little life into it, man. I guess I'm sure you're
Yeah.
as excited as I am in that regard.
Yes, I am. It was always going to be better storylines, better cinematic effect, if you will, for the season if Aaron Rodgers was a part of this team. And going back to the talk about Band-Aid after Band-Aid, I think you can, when you look back on it in hindsight, to me there's reasons why it was all right to apply those Band-Aids, right? You
Yeah.
leave the Roethlisberger year, final season, and you just needed a veteran something while you were trying to figure out what you were going to do. And whether a quarterback would be available to you in the draft. And so they went after Trubisky, kind of like a retread, right? What could this guy have left in the tank after he was eschewed by the team that drafted him? And then you draft Kenny Pickett. And going into last year, I honestly think Russell Wilson was brought in as the bar for which Kenny Pickett could be measured. And if Kenny Pickett was going to surpass Russell Wilson, then you felt good about him playing out his rookie contract potentially and seeing what you had in him. But if he couldn't meet that bar, then maybe it was time to move on after that. And Kenny Pickett just reacted so poorly to it, you had to move on. So the Band-Aids have each made sense to me. And that, again, is why I'm so on board with the Rodgers signing. It's like the perfect Band-Aid, in my opinion. It gives you a chance to field a competitive unit without pretense. You're not making it up to say that the Steelers are competitive with Aaron Rodgers, but you have zero ties, zero commitment to him beyond 2025. So you can go do whatever you want at quarterback and go get the procedure done instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it after this year.
All right, so let's go down this rabbit hole for a second. What would be the worst case scenario with Aaron Rodgers, in your opinion?
Well, I think the worst case scenario is that the age is just too much for him to overcome, and he gets hurt or just totally falls off the cliff this year. That would be the worst case scenario. A lot of people would say, "Oh, the worst case scenario is he tries to take over this team and he tries to bring in all his guys and tries to do this, tries to do that." And I just don't see that happening. I think worst case scenario is the age factor. If that comes to fruition where he just hit the wall and it's over for him, then I think that could spark a guy like Aaron Rodgers to not like quit on the team and leave or something like that, but to not give 100% anymore for the season. And then you would have a problem there. That was maybe my biggest concern about the Rodgers signing in the first place, but I don't think your floor drops too low with even if that happens. You have other people you can go to if Rodgers gets injured. And also, again, I keep saying it every time we talk about the quarterback situation. The Steelers are their basic floor is not determined by the quarterback. It's determined by the Mike Tomlin infrastructure that has been built over there. So I don't see them falling off a cliff no matter what. But worst case scenario, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt or something like that. You have to go back to one of these guys that you maybe we're going to go with if he decided not to sign. And so I don't think that the worst case scenario is all that bad for Pittsburgh in 2025, honestly.
All right. So if that's the worst case scenario, what do you think the best case scenario is? And it's tough to say because Aaron Rodgers last season was coming off of an Achilles rupture. That was a very dysfunctional team in New York. And then 2023, when everyone thought he was going to really make some moves in New York, he blasted 4 plays before he ruptured said Achilles. But he didn't have a good 2022 in Green Bay either. So what's the best case scenario for you?
My best case scenario basically is that Aaron Rodgers rekindles some of that 2022, 2021 Packers magic where he was so well sought after because he's coming off of 2 back-to-back MVP seasons where he's just in total control of his arm, his ability to read the field, all the pre-snap stuff. And you set him into an Arthur Smith offense that isn't a perfect fit for him, but maybe takes away some of the issues that he had with the Jets where he was just freelancing all the time. And then by the end of things, it was such a rough situation that he was just checking the ball down all the time and getting rid of it fast. And I think that Arthur Smith's design and structure of the offense gives Aaron Rodgers a structure within which to work. And I think that his knowledge of defense, his ability to read pre-snap, his ability to make every throw still with the arm talent that he has, if that all comes together and the playmakers that the Steelers have added work, that running game is good, and the offensive line specifically becomes a decent to good unit, then I think that the Aaron Rodgers led Steelers offense is a top half of the league offense consistently, with some top 12 performances sprinkled in every couple weeks or so. And the defense does its thing. And you're looking at an 11-12 win team in 2025. I really think that that's on the table for the Steelers if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy and can rekindle some of the magic that he had pre-Jets before everything just went to heck with the injuries and the Jets being the Jets.
Let me ask you another follow-up here about Rodgers. Do you think that with the signing, and it's pending, okay? He hasn't signed, he hasn't put pen to paper yet, but everyone, even Jerry Dulac and other Steelers beat writers, are saying it's going to happen. Does that change the Steelers' approach to maybe adding a player or two to the roster? Do you think they might have said, well, if Aaron doesn't sign, we're probably not going to go out and get another receiver. We're just going to just roll with the guys that we have. Do you think that now with Aaron Rodgers, assuming he does sign, that they're like, okay, let's actually see if we can get something happening here?
Well, Jeff, to be honest, I think the plan has always been the plan, because I think they knew pretty strongly that Aaron Rodgers would be there. So I just think that they've always been willing to pursue those types of guys, those free agents or the trade partners, to add playmakers to the offense, because they really believed that he was coming. So I don't know if it changes anything. I think they're heavily pursuing people. I think they've been putting feelers out all over the place. Maybe now that you know for sure, that just happens a little bit quicker. Maybe you want to get that playmaker in with Aaron Rodgers a little bit quicker to build some chemistry in the offseason when they're working out together, training to get together. But I still think that the Steelers felt strongly enough that Aaron Rodgers was going to be their quarterback, that whether that was the week before training camp he signed or this week, that they were going to make a play at some point. So I don't know if it changes the strategy at all. It just might happen a little bit sooner now than maybe if they believed Aaron Rodgers was going to sign that week before training camp.
Okay, so let's talk pass catchers. If there's a type of pass catcher, and I say this, like, would you want a Kyle Pitts? Like, there's been rumors in Atlanta that they might be shopping him. He has underperformed since he was drafted, and there's no way around. Talk about the quarterbacks, the coaches, the coordinators, whatever. Yep. He's underperformed. And then you get to receivers, and there's been the rumors about Chris Olave and the potential trade with the Saints. Who are you looking to add in terms of making this offense more dynamic?
I'd be looking to add somebody who can provide you like a DK running mate for the next 2 to 3 years. I'm not looking for a Band-Aid solution.
Okay.
So I know that the Steelers probably are going to be heavily involved in drafting a receiver next year, but if I'm Pittsburgh and I have the opportunity to go get, we've been reading Terry McLaurin's been very unhappy with talks over there. I'm not saying anything. Yeah, exactly. And he would have to be paid big money, right? So that would be something to consider. But like, that's why I liked one of these Packers receivers, and the Aaron Rodgers ties notwithstanding, because you can get a young guy, bring him in as they're closing out a contract, and add to that contract, add 2 years to it or whatever. And then you've got a running mate with DK Metcalf to pair with Rodgers this year and your quarterback of the future next year, that gives you some continuity around the youngster without having to reshape that room every year. For all the talk that's been about quarterback, that wide receiver room has been shaken up every year in the last couple years, just like the quarterback room has. So I think getting some stability there would be fantastic. Jonnu Smith, I think it's still on the table, and I would like that move a lot. I know a lot of people aren't as high on that move. I think getting pass catchers in who can make plays, you can't have too many of those guys, even if maybe he's a little bit redundant with Pat Freiermuth. You know, Gabe Davis, I was like, he's redundant with DK Metcalf, but do something, get somebody in here that has some talent. It's not maybe my favorite move, but it makes some sense to be able to do that, to go out and do that if you're trying to win now and prep for the future. So I would say go get a guy. Personally, my preference would be go get a guy that you can pair with DK in that room for more than just this year.
And I do think I forgot to mention this in the first half of the show, that it's important to note that Gabe Davis is expected to leave Pittsburgh without a deal. But I don't think that from what I've read, it's not indicative of him not wanting to be here. I think he wants to go and see what all of his options are. He's visited other teams, and then he'll make his decision then. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But I think the Steelers, if they do make a trade for a player, like I'm with you. It's got to be more than 1 year. Get a guy, especially for giving up draft capital.
Yes.
You want to build this roster. I talked about it in the first half. You want to build this roster so that if you can get a quarterback, a young quarterback, everything around him is there. He's got the wide receivers. He has the offensive line. He has the running backs. Look at 2004 with Roethlisberger. That's exactly what he had. Hines Ward, Plexico Burress, eventually Santonio Holmes. Heath Miller was the safety valve. I mean, he had a ton of options, not to mention Jerome Bettis and a bunch of other good running backs like Willie Parker as well. So they've got to build it. And so let's see what else they do. But any final thoughts, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think like just tagging on to that, you spent a second round pick on DK Metcalf this last year instead of keeping and extending George Pickens. And you do that because of the on-field and off-field attitude issues from Pickens probably. And DK Metcalf gives you a proven veteran playmaker that's still young that you can, sign for a long-term deal. But if you're going to sign another receiver, or if you're going to add another receiver and you're going to give up draft capital for him from next year, and you're thinking you're going to have to trade up for a quarterback as well, and then draft a receiver on top of that to pair with DK Metcalf, you're wasting your time and your resources by doing that. So I think if you do trade for somebody, it has to be somebody that is going to be here for more than a year. No mercenary hires, please, at this point, if you're going to trade for somebody. That would be my final thought on the playmaker side of things.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us what's coming up on the written side as well as the podcast side so people can tune in and check out all that stuff?
Well, now that we know the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh, they'll be next up on my best and worst case scenarios article series for the Steelers by position group. So that'll be out first thing next week. And I'm working on an article for ffsn.com that's all about which quarterbacks are kind of on the hot seat this next year as well, which quarterbacks could be moved if in a make or break year if they don't live up to expectations. So that's coming out. We'll be talking about the Rodgers signing on the Steelers Q&A this weekend, now that it's official. And then the Draft Dynasty podcast, we're going to be rotating through some guests. So it's going to be a different show every week. It's going to be a lot of fun throughout the summer while Andrew Wilbar is out. So stay tuned every week and be ready for the next episode of the DDP.
All right. Perfect, Jeremy. Thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk post-mandatory minicamp next week. So take it easy. Enjoy your weekend.
Have a good one, Jeff.